So let us begin with Nash therapeutics study streak, and we'll study 5 remedies today. And most importantly, these remedies are more or less in relationship to each other. So where we see one remedy, the other is indicated, and we have to differentiate all these remedies. The remedies that we'll discuss are Epismel, Cantharis, Tarantula hispania, Tarantula cubensis, and Mygale. They are written almost in, the materia medica of these remedies written by Dr. Nash in his book Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics is very less, like almost 2 pages for Apis and Cantharis each, and Tarantula, both the Tarantulas and Mygale in 1 page finish. This is because these remedies were just introduced to homeopathy or were introduced to homeopathy very near to the age of Dr. Nash, and there was less literature available, or he could not procure it. That is why he has written it too less. But whatever he has written, it's as valuable as gold. So let us go and see what he has written in Apis mellifica, the first remedy. We all know that this remedy has burning, stinging pains, left, right, and center. We prescribe for all patients. But the challenge clinically that we see, and also Dr. Nash observed, was to differentiate this remedy from arsenic and sulfur. So he gives us very beautifully descriptions of how you will see arsenic, how you will see sulfur, and how you will differentiate both these remedies and prescribe Apis mellifica. So all the three remedies will have burning, but the intensity of burning will be different. In fact, if you go and read Arsenic album from Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics by Dr. Nash, he has mentioned how arsenic has acute burnings more often, and sulfur will be indicated for chronic conditions which have burning as a main feature. So if you remember these little things, they are going to make your job easier. That's what is all about homeopathy. You do not need any new methods, you do not need any fancy rubrics, or something that is never introduced in the field of homeopathy. It's all there, literature is all available, the data is all available in all our source books. The authors have all written, and the patients are going to come and bombard you with those very questions. So we have Apis mellifica, burning, stinging pains, which are going to be the hallmark of your prescriptions. And there are shrills, sudden piercing screams, which are going to make the opposite person feel that it is very irritating, it is very disturbing. How do you handle it? That's what describes Apis mellifica and differentiates Apis mellifica from the other remedies. Next is, he gives us a beautiful description of how this remedy Apis mellifica can be useful in hydrocephalus, meningitis, typhus cerebralis. But we all know that these are going to be the rarest of rare patients, and we don't know how many homeopaths will see these patients. So coming to the practical part, and this is what Nash is all about. Dr. Nash has given everything in beautiful description in his uh, book, and he says that not only in such conditions where there are these kind of indications for Apis mellifica, but they are also there in the remedy in the conditions where there is throat troubles, there is hemorrhoids, there are cancers, there are phelons. So these are the pathologies which a homeopath is bound to see in his clinic, and he will more or less observe it in such conditions rather than in hydrocephalus, in meningitis, which are going to be the rare presentations. Going forward, he says that Herring conveys us, and also says, he quotes Dr. Herring's guiding symptoms at many places in many areas. And again, he says over here that there is redness, swelling with stinging, burning pain. in the eyes, eyelids, ears, face, lips, tongue, throat, anus, testicles, everywhere. Burning, stinging pains. So you do not need to get into any complicated rubrics to understand that it is as simple as it can always be. And next, what Dr. Nash says is that this remedy can be indicated in infiltrated cellular tissue. It is a semi-dropsical condition or a dropsical condition, and there is edema of that part. You know that patients who present with lower eyelid swelling have those conditions. Conjunctivitis or severe form of conjunctivitis have that condition. So this is the stage of inflammatory affections which is trying to localize in a part with lot of edema if you connect it with the pathology, and this is what Dr. Nash has described beautifully in his book. So he was a person who will touch on many subjects during the course of his lectures, and it is not just materia medica or philosophy that he is going to express. He will share everything about different ideas of how a homeopath should think, and that is why you should go and read his book. So what he describes for Apis mellifica is that this remedy is indicated mostly in the phase or stage of beginning of inflammatory exudations or affections, and it extends to the stage of exudation and even chronic dropsical states. So that is the beauty of Apis mellifica. The throat is mostly affected. Diphtheria, apis, calibicromicum, rustox, and baptisia have been compared beautifully by him. How one remedy differentiates from the other. Three of the remedies amongst them will have uh, a lot of edema, a lot of throat conditions which are dropsical, which are engorged. But how will you differentiate it? That will be mentioned beautifully. That is described by Dr. Nash. Next, he gives that baptisia will have painlessness, whereas apis mellifica is bound to have painfulness, burning, stinging, which is going to be the hallmark of your prescription. Next, he gives one case. So every remedy that he describes, Dr. Nash, he gives one case, and this case next he describes for Apis mellifica is also, something that was critical case where this patient, all the patients around them, around that area were dying, and he was brought in by some homeopath who saw this patient, and there was a bad throat condition and no one knew what to do, and apis was never used, never prescribed. And he saw the patient, he saw such an edema, and he saw that I have read the same thing in the provings, and that is why I choose to give apis mellifica. The doctors over there didn't give this remedy apis mellifica because it was feared to be a powerful blood poison. Yes, and there was a time where Apis was prescribed for the first time by Dr. Nash, and not one patient after that event died. So, this was a scene where diphtheria was a badly spread epidemic in the 1900s, and patients were dying of suffocating and getting blood poisonings. Apis mellifica saved a lot of people in this area, particular area where he prescribed, and that is why he says that this remedy was never prescribed earlier, but what we saw was interesting. It matched the exact picture of the provings of apis mellifica. That is what you should do. You should try to connect using the poisoning cases, using the proving cases, using the materia medica, and bring everything together, and go to your successful cases and give them, study them again and again and see what has helped. Last but not the least, for Apis mellifica, Dr. Nash tells us that there is lot of sensitiveness to touch, there is a restless sleep, or there is a deep sleep with lot of piercing screams, lot of howling, shrieking all the time, and that is where he tells us that this is the area where you need to prescribe Apis mellifica. So next, he comes to a very similar remedy, and the remedy is cantharis. So if the beautiful description he starts with for cantharis needs to be observed and needs to be read by each homeopath. What is the description? I'll tell you in the pure words of Dr. Nash. If I were to select the one remedy with which to prove the truth of the formula similia similibus curanter, I think it would be this one, that is Cantharis. Now, why does he say this? Because if you see arsenic as a remedy which is, having burning or, burning pains, Apis is an exaggeration of burning pains which we see. Apis has burning stinging. Cantharis is 2x arsenic and Apis combined. So you see the intensity of the symptom burning and stinging manifesting so strongly in cantharis as a remedy, and that is one of the reasons why Nash thinks that if he wants to prove similia similibus curanter as a law between any of the homeopaths, non-homeopaths, orthodox people, allopaths, laymen, anyone, he it would be this remedy: frequent micturition with burning and cutting pains. This is going to drive a patient crazy. You will feel that either the patient is hysterical or he is really affected badly, which is why he is doing this. I've never seen this in my life. That is where you can think of cantharis as a remedy. The next scenario what he gives is in cases of bronchitis where there is tough mucus, tenacious mucus, just like the Kali bichromicum remedy, hydrostis as a remedy, Coccus cacti as a remedy. Cantharis is no doubt valuable from the respiratory point of view as well. We always tend to give it as a remedy in urinary troubles, but you can give it in respiratory troubles as well. Dr. Nash gives a beautiful description of how you can employ this remedy with tough and tenacious mucus in cases of bronchitis. So, now going further, he gives another case of a urinary trouble, and this lady was struggling with some lot of symptoms. She was having symptoms which were exactly matching the picture of Kali bichromicum, and this is how he describes. And this remedy Kali bichromicum, after a few doses, failed, and the patient got even worse. I don't know of any homeopath who comes on stage or writes a book and he tells you that I failed in this case and then I gave this. Everywhere, every homeopath is sharing success stories, good cases, nice cases, but Dr. Nash gives a very beautiful case in Cantharis, how he stumbled or failed with Kali bichromicum, and then how he gave Cantharis. The effect was magical. These are his words. You must go and read this remedy so that you are inspired and practice true Hahnemannian classical homeopathy in your clinic. Next, you see is how Cantharis needs to be differentiated from Apis mellifica in cases of skin troubles. So, yes, this is a remedy which is less prescribed in skin troubles, more prescribed only in urinary troubles. That is why we become mostly prejudiced with the remedies and their sphere of action. But if we know the remedy has a wide range of action, and it can work on many levels, like not only the urinary but also the skin, also the respiratory. We make our job easier to help the patient with one remedy on multiple levels than multiple remedies on the same patient. So Dr. Nash, describes the difference between Apis and Cantharis, and he gives a beautiful description where this Apis will have more of edema, whereas Cantharis will have more of blistering and burning. And in Cantharis, the burning is more intense, whereas Apis will have more like a stinging pain. Now, this is a very theoretical question. To answer it practically, you will need a patient's description in front to understand. But going further, he differentiates Cantharis. Again, this remedy also needs to be differentiated from uh, arsenic album, and he says that cantharis is a remedy which increases the secretion. That is why you have frequent micturition. That is why you have excess of mucus. So if you remember, this remedy not only for the tenesmus and burning or stinging, but also for increase of mucus, it would help 10 times more than the prejudiced thinking of urinary troubles only. Last but not the least, there is a very beautiful line which Dr. Nash shares in the remedy Cantharis, and the line is something like, Herring used to challenge the skeptics to burn their fingers, and then he used to cure them by dipping the same burned fingers in water medicated with Cantharis. So great was his faith in it. Can you believe a homeopath who ever does this? This is what the old age stalwarts did. They challenged the skeptics by telling them, you burn your fingers and we cure them right away, or you bring anyone who can do that. This is just beyond belief, but it was done by homeopaths. It was proved by homeopaths practically, theoretically, and not just coming on stage and sharing some success stories or what he did, what they did. No ego busting, just pure practice classical homeopathy. So I want you all to go through these two beautiful remedies from leaders in homeopathic therapeutics by Dr. Nash, and I am 110% sure you will be spellbound by the way he narrates both these remedies. Last three remedies which are mentioned on one page each, I mean it would rather be half a page each, which is Tarantula hispania, cubensis, and Mygale. Tarantula hispania, Dr. Nash shares that there is more of a nervous system which is involved. There is a hyperesthesia which leads to hysterical condition. There is constant inclination to keep the hands busy, just like Kali bromatum, and there is restlessness. The restlessness is general as well as local. This is the beautiful part of Tarantula hispania. It can be twitching or jerking of the muscles in single part. It can be twitching or jerking of the muscles as a whole, or the generalized restlessness which is seen. And he concludes Tarantula hispania by sharing that this remedy needs to be proved more. This is the data that I have. He moves on to share about Tarantula cubensis, or the hairy spider. He starts it by mentioning that Tarantula cubensis as a title, and then or the hairy spider. So you can see how beautifully he narrates the remedy, just like he is delivering a lecture in front of an audience, and the way he wants to share is just keeping his heart on his sleeve. This is the beautiful part of reading Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics by Dr. Nash. So he goes on to share that Tarantula cubensis is like anthracinum and arsenic for boils, phelons, abscesses. He has employed it in a case where there was night aggravation and there was a bad abscess phelon which was going on, and how he helped with Tarantula cubensis, he has mentioned. And then he also concludes this remedy with, it needs proving because this was a newly introduced remedy back then. Last remedy for the day, which Dr. Nash, we pick up from Dr. Nash, and then we meet up again next Thursday. So the last remedy, that is Mygale. Now this is again another spider which he picks up because it is related to the previous remedies, which is the animal insects or the spiders. And he shares two three things which are important, which is chorea and twitching of facial muscles. And he concludes that again this remedy needs proving, and I don't have much literature. This is the only thing I have. So four remedies which are mostly related to each other: Apis, Cantharis, Tarantula, two Tarantulas, and Mygale. In fact, we did five remedies, right? So five remedies at 5 p.m. from Dr. Nash, Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics. I want all of you to go and read these five remedies. It is going to not only give you the materia medica for these remedies, but also inspire you by his philosophical, you know, quotes and also cases, and something that interjects in between about how Herring used to challenge his skeptics by putting it in putting by telling them to put their fingers in burning water and cure it with cantharis. This is going to give you goosebumps for sure. As of now, I call it a day and see you all for the next session on Nash Therapeutics next Thursday at 5 p.m. with next set of remedies.